Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7 by 7. So, Star Wars Resistance, we're hoping to get some new information during San Diego Comic-Con, but obviously there were no panels that were announced that had anything to do with Star Wars Resistance, and so, nope, nothing there. And unfortunately, in the publishing panel for Lucasfilm, there was no announcement of a Resistance-related novel. And that's not to say that we couldn't see something later in the year. Maybe they're not ready to announce anything about it. I mean, they haven't really shown an official image, really. I mean, there was that one presentation that was done overseas, and yeah, that image made its way around the internet. And so, in fact, here it is. Like, just have a look at it anyway. There we go. All right, so you can see what's going on here. You've got the First Order folks on the left and the Resistance folks on the right. Now, it looks like there's only one quote-unquote alien creature that we can see there, the green guy to the right of Poe Dameron. So that could be Jim Rash's character, since Jim Rash has said that his quartermaster character is an alien of some kind, so that seems to be right up that alley. And the thing that people are well, I'll wait. I'll wait to talk about that. First, let's talk about that ship that we see on the right-hand side. So we don't know anything about that just yet, but it occurs to me that the way that the folks at Lucasfilm have been operating recently, they've been tying in a lot of stuff here and there. That could be a Resistance transport like the kind that we're supposed to eventually see on Batuu in the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge theme park expansion happening at Walt Disney World and Disneyland. So I'm going to put my money on it and say, hey, I'd say there's a better than even chance that that could be our Resistance transport that we're going to be seeing there. But, that's just a bit of speculation at this point. The thing that everybody's really jumping all over is the red armored First Order trooper that we see there. Now, as far as we know from the novel, not the novel Cardinal, excuse me, the novel Phasma by Delilah Dawson, there's a character in there named Cardinal who was supposedly the only stormtrooper who had red armor. And it kind of makes sense for Star Wars Resistance, because what we learn about Cardinal and Phasma in the Phasma novel is that once Phasma is taken off her home planet of Parnassus, she ends up training the teenage and adult First Order stormtroopers, and Cardinal, who had been running the whole training program, is now relegated to dealing with all the young troops. And so that kind of makes sense for an animated series, which is ostensibly directed more at kids than it is at adults. So you can see a character like Cardinal training the troops and getting more involved. Gwendoline Christie is going to do a guest voice as Captain Phasma, but I don't think we can really assume that she's going to have a major ongoing role in Star Wars Resistance. I imagine it's only going to be a couple of guest episode shots, just like Oscar Isaac returning as Poe Dameron, just a couple of guest episode situations, and then we'll move on with Star Wars Resistance without those two characters, except, if maybe some, season finale or a season premiere, they show up for an extra. So it makes sense that Cardinal is there. Here's the big question, though. As far as when in the timeline this series takes place, well, we don't know yet. And the way that the Phasma novel is written, it's not really clear exactly when that takes place either. What we do know is that Phasma has been off of Parnassus for 10 years when Vi Moradi, who is the Resistance spy that gets captured by the First Order and interrogated by Cardinal, that it's been 10 years since that happened, and if there's a Resistance spy kicking around, well, we know it's 6 years before The Force Awakens, like, that the Resistance is actually formed, so it has to be happening somewhere within that 6-year period. Cardinal, well, here we go. This is spoiler territory for Phasma, and the novel's been out for quite a while, so honestly, I probably don't need to do the spoiler warning, but just in case, here's your spoiler warning for Phasma. Cardinal ends up leaving with Vi Moradi to go back to Parnassus, where Vi is going to rescue a woman named Civ and her child Torby. Civ was part of Phasma's clan on Parnassus and was betrayed and left for dead there, but she survived, and so Vi is able to get Cardinal out of there as well. So if we know that Cardinal is being pictured with the First Order in this, image that we're seeing for Star Wars Resistance, then how long is Star Wars Resistance slated to go? Is it going to be 4 seasons like Rebels? Will it be even longer, like with the Clone Wars. I mean, it's probably safer to assume a 4-season situation because that's what we saw with Rebels, recent history and so on and so forth. And if that's the case, then it might be right with, it might end at the point of time just before the events of Phasma take place. And I'm saying that because I don't find it likely that they're going to depict the events of Phasma in Star Wars Resistance. Like, definitely not really suitable for Star Wars Resistance as a children's show. And yet, they haven't done a situation where they've had a novel occur in between seasons, for example, in Star Wars Rebels or in Star Wars The Clone Wars either, I don't believe. So it seems like it would slot in that time space. And then, of course, there's the fact that the Resistance is barely beginning to form at the end of Bloodline, Claudia Gray's novel. So let's just roll the dice and say that Star Wars Resistance is going to start off maybe about a year after the events of Star Wars Bloodline. And we'll say, hey, rough estimate, it'll end about a year before the events of The Force Awakens. And then we'll say that the events of Phasma happen about 1 year before the events of The Force Awakens. Sound like a plan? It sounds like a nice fit within the Star Wars timeline as we know it. Let me know what you think. And that's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. Over on the audio version at sw7x7.com/iTunes or wherever you like to listen to podcasts, I'll be doing Last Jedi Trivia, so do check that out. For now, though, it just remains for me to say thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.